Hi everyone, this is Modern Mongolia and I'm your host Donna. Here I share some fun facts about Mongolia, lived experiences, and contemporary culture and lifestyle of Mongolians. So, welcome aboard. I've been thinking about recording this episode for a while, but recent visit, recent meaning like it was a month ago, Nas Daily visited Mongolia and he's commissioned 1-minute content about Mongolia being a country of women. It felt something was not right. So I definitely needed to talk about being a woman in Mongolia. To give you the context about Nas Daily, he is an international influencer with 12 million subscribers, and he was invited by the Ministry of Culture of Mongolia to organize influencers events, advertise Mongolia with his videos. So he produced 4 videos, 1-minute videos about Mongolia, and one of them was called Mongolia, Country of Women. And the way he portrayed women in Mongolia was not very I would say context accurate. He seemed like quite impressed with all the women on the street and getting educated in universities and just women being everywhere. And he was like, hey, look, there's women, there's two. And he said women have equal rights in Mongolia in contrast to other countries where women have no rights. Well, that's true, but way he talked and was more kind of advertising Mongolia to specifically maybe to a man or like only for feminists. So let me give you my insights and my feelings as a Mongolian woman. First of all, I have never viscerally related to the Western feminist rage. In Mongolia, in my childhood, I never encountered discrimination or disadvantage for being a girl and woman, which can be a very subjective or fortunate case of mine. But of course, if I search for someone who was a victim of gender discrimination and related adversities, definitely I will find someone. But in a generic view, Mongolia is favorable in terms of gender equality to the extent of both men and women have equal opportunity. One of the proud examples that I have is I worked at VMLY in Mongolia, which is an international marketing and research agency, and I worked there for over a year before I went on as a freelancer. And at the moment I was working, CEO and 2 other directors of the marketing and research businesses were all women, and still until today it's a female-led company. And it was my first experience working in a company where all the executives were female, and I had extremely pleasant experience to working with my former bosses. They are all very cool, strong, intelligent, hardworking. And I just want to shout out to my former boss, Todlich, and she's an inspiring woman leader at VMLY in Mongolia, which is now a Mind Plus with its new title. So for example, in the corporate world, this is just as normal as it is, nothing to be impressed for Mongolians. However, there are differing cases in public service and political representation where men are the majority. So all in all, women today in Mongolia seem to be even more educated, financially independent, have higher social status than men. But to arrive at this point, of course, historically, Mongolian women had some ups and downs in terms of equality. In the ancient times, Mongolian culture was more matriarchal, and mothers were revered and respected, and elder women played important roles in guiding their families and being visionary leaders. This matriarchal reverence is expressed in many poems and folk songs, and mother or motherhood is one of the main themes of Mongolian poetry, music, and art world. And I guess by now you know about the Who band. And even though they're like a very heavy metal band, they have a song about celebrating and honoring women. The song title is Song of Women, and it's a beautiful art of music. And you can go to YouTube and check that out. So historically, there are plenty of stories about powerful Mongol queens and princesses who played vital roles in battles, political affairs, and national destiny. And as a legacy of those amazing women, there is an ideal concept of a woman to have the wisdom of the queen. And it's called Hatang Ohang in Mongolian. And Hatang is queen and Ohang is wisdom. So for Mongolians, the most ideal woman has the wisdom of the queen, who wisely handles chores at home without any difficulty, raises their children, and takes care of herself, presents elegance and fairness, while also entertaining, supporting their husband with intelligence, sharp wits, and resourcefulness. And of course, in reality, it's hard for women to fit into that ideal and embody perfect women with the wisdom of a queen. And that's why it's so easy for Mongolians to judge women if they're not all of it. And in my opinion, Mongolian women are burdened to carry too many duties and responsibilities. Mongolian women are too masculine, but not in a sense of physicality, but in how much they carry on their backs and how much they are capable of enduring. I would say Mongolian women are resilient and strong and exhibits a lot of masculine energy in their ambition, drive, and endurance and everything. So I asked a couple other women to share their thoughts and feelings about being Mongolian women in contemporary times. So here's Namka and Tugsuu. Namka is a creative director, and Tugsuu is an anthropologist.
I feel like being a woman in Mongolia is relatively better compared to other Asian countries. We're more recognized in our careers, our expertise, opinions, and views are respected, I would say. Maybe I'm biased because of my own personal experience. I almost always had a female senior or a female boss. But at the same time, I feel like that's a double-edged sword. A lot of girls in my circle are fantastic females. They're intelligent, they have their passions, they're funny and full of personality, they're hard workers, they care of their families, whether it's their parents or children. They basically manage everything, but the men feel emasculated because of that. I'm not saying it's all men, but most men we've encountered so far have been, for lack of a better term, not good enough for my girlfriends. And even if they were good enough, they'd rather feel like a man compared to feeling like an equal. Another issue I'd like to highlight is that the women manage everything. Like the mental load of taking care of the household, whether it's like household chores, the cleanliness, what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed, like the logistics of it all, as well as like the family, which could mean parents of both sides if married, as well as their own. Like the mental load of planning everything is mostly on the women, but I'm sure it's like this everywhere. Women are brought up to be more empathetic to others' needs, and that translated to being like the project manager of a shared life in adulthood.
Hello, my name is Tugsuu and I'm currently doing my PhD in anthropology at the National University of Mongolia. And for me, being a woman in Mongolia is okay. First and foremost, I can be whatever or whoever I want to be. For example, I can be a taxi driver, I can be a mother, I can be a researcher, I can be a journalist. So it's a very free country. But I was born and raised in Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital city of Mongolia. So I have choices. But in countryside, I guess it is very hard to be a woman there, because I have to herd my livestock at the same time, look after my children, and I have to wake up very early in the morning and sleep very late. But I guess in a macro level, woman has economic and other powers. For example, in their family, they can manage what to buy, and where to move or where to buy apartment. So overall, I would say women in Mongolia is very powerful in terms of their wishes. Thank you.
So there is an apparent difference in women's experience in rural and urban Mongolia. In the countryside, patriarchy is strong and men make the most decisions and have the economic and social power. While countryside women are highly burdened with most household chores, raising their children, herding animals, milking and producing dairy products and so on. Actually, life in the countryside as a herder is not an easy life. It's quite exhausting, demands a lot of physical effort, and it's risky due to the harsh weather. There are thousands of things to do, starting from dawn until midnight. Even in the night, they still have to be alert and attentive to the animals. But it doesn't mean men don't do much. Of course, they also have their responsibilities and burdens. Only the social power and social organization are arranged around. The historical construction of gender roles was rooted in the nomadic lifestyle. The nomadic way of living requires physical endurance, stamina, and grit from human beings. So it's tough for both men and women. With men, they mostly herd the animals, tackle physically demanding duties, chop woods, protect their families, and going the distance, etc. And women are responsible for household chores, laundry, cooking, sewing, producing dairies, and many more. However, once the men of the family goes away for looking for their animals, etc., women also carry on their husband's responsibilities too. Like if their husband is not home, they chop the woods, they also herd animals. So the expectation of women to be strong and competent is naturally embedded in our mindset. However, as the migration to Ulaanbaatar city intensified, I think it's same as around all over the world, many herders and their children are choosing to move to the central places and, of course, looking for education and livelihood options. Herder family often decide to let the boys have the responsibility to continue the traditional way of herding in the countryside and send their daughters to cities, to AMAC or SOM centers. So it's a real problem in rural areas that young men are not educated. By familial or self-obligation, they choose a nomadic life, and women tend to settle in the cities after their education, creating the demographic gap in the countryside. On the other hand, women in the city are more independent, educated, and empowered. So there are also some articles on the internet about Mongolian women being too strong and resulting in many single and unmarried women. I think that is, of course, true in reality. And in fact, over 60% of students in higher education are in women in Mongolia today. Actually, once my French friend who lives in Ulaanbaatar once told me that he finds it so strange that in bars, cafes, lounges, there are always group of women of like 5 or 6 hanging out and chatting and having fun. He said it's not very common to him, but I was quite surprised to hear that. Like, why is it not common? And for me, it's like totally common, typical in Mongolia. And what do you think? Like, how is it in your culture? Is it that not common to like group of women to hang out like everywhere? Actually, in general, it's not that very impressive if a woman today excels at everything in her family, in her career, being ambitious and intelligent. But it's easily judged if women are not perfect like that. Even women themselves are happy with themselves not having it all. Other people kind of judge them and tries to intervene with their lives. So while Mongolians allow women to have all the opportunities to thrive, Mongolians expect women to bear a lot. Even women are reinforced to be fully responsible for the pureness of Mongolian blood. If men marry a foreign woman, it's totally normal. But if women marry foreign men, it's a betrayal from Mongolian pure blood, and it's disapproved and condemned. And so even though we have all this opportunity and this equal right, there are social issues of domestic violence and sexual harassment that women are facing as in every other country. But I believe those are not gender issues here. Those are mostly issues of alcohol addiction, poverty, and so on. So, lastly, the women in Mongolia are super, they are strong, intelligent, talented, amazing friends, mothers, daughters. And talking about women, I just want to shout out to all my female friends, my mom, my sister, my former bosses, colleagues, and all Mongolian women. Personally, I was raised in a family with very strong women. For example, my mother, she's a university professor, and she was the only child of her parents that moved to the city and created her own life from scratch. All of her siblings stayed in the countryside as herders, as they are now. And she created everything that we have today with her hard work. When I was a child, we were living in a studio flat. It was not ours, we were renting, and 4 of us were living there, and she created a home for us, and car and everything, and from scratch, basically, literally. And my sister is also very independent. She became financially independent when she was a student and I was not. And she now works in Seoul in an investment bank. So I'm just very thankful for all the women in my life, and I just feel like I'm the weakest woman of my family, but that's fine because all of us have our own unique path in life. And I'm proud to be a Mongolian woman, to be honest. And I just I feel like I want to dedicate this episode to all women I know. And yay, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this podcast, and if you'd like to keep up with Mongolia, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and everywhere else. Хамт байсанд маш их баярлалаа. Баяртай.